got quite a few videos coming up. I'm doing a spotlight on the Vicaria that I was showing you, the soapwort, which is growing between the forget-me-nots here. You know, I want to catch up on the Bells of Ireland because they have performed very differently to how they performed last year. So I'd like to show you that. But this video, I just thought, you know, I like to cram in a lot of flowers and shrubs and plants, as you know, into my garden, my cottage garden, which isn't really always the best strategy for a cottage garden, but I do like to have as much sort of bang for my buck, if you like, in terms of the space that I've got in this garden and the flowers that it produces. And so therefore you have to consider layering. So layering is really important to give the impression of abundance. Sorry, so my daughter was sitting here, so it's a bit messy. Sorry about that. She hasn't cleared up. It's so hot and it's the weekend. So as you can see, as you look down the garden, there are layers of flowers each, you know, all the way to the back. And so here at the front, you have these sweet peas and roses, and then you've got a rose hedge. And then beyond that, you've got the climbing rose and the rambler rose, and there's a buddleia, which isn't in flower yet. So obviously the tallest, which is the climbing and the rambler rose and the buddleia, are at the back, right over there. And then as you come further forward, so that when you're sitting on this, you know, on this terrace here, you can see all the layers of flowers across the garden, and it just gives that feeling of abundance and like everything is covered, which of course it isn't because I haven't finished this garden yet. So I've got like lots of height and, you know, blocks of colour and height, and they're all different layers so that you can see all of it, most of it, from various different places that I sit in the garden. So that's one of the ways you think about layering in your garden. You have to look at the whole garden, from the front to the back, and from different angles to see what should be at the front overall and what should be at the back. And then, of course, you've got your layering of borders. So this is a plant theatre. It's a border anyway. And you've got your layers there. So the pots just gradually go. It's kind of a little bit of a rockery, this area. So the pots go up and, you know, the taller ones are at the back. And here's an example of where I've got it wrong, this one here, because I didn't anticipate this plant growing so tall. So I need to move that because this border I actually want to be all about the same height because I don't want it to block the other borders behind it. So I don't want this one here. It's going to have to go. It doesn't work. And you can see this one here is almost a little bit too tall as well. And the marigold is a bit too short there, really. And these ranunculus were lost at the back of this little border here because really I don't really look at it in the round. I look at it from across the garden. So this is further back, this border, so I can go a bit higher with this one. And although these are not in the right order, so this scabiosa should really be behind that achillea right there, or maybe I'll move it over here next year so it can fill up because that border still needs filling. But as you can see, we've got now the taller poppies. It's a really nice graduation from the zinnias, the poppies, sweet peas, and there's the achillea, and it all goes up and up. And then I can see that also from across the garden. So I can see that round border that I was just showing you, and then I can see this as the backdrop. And you can see all the different layers here reaching up, with the sweet peas obviously being the tallest because you want height as well. The height really helps. I've even got some sunflowers which will be coming up when all these things are kind of getting tired. And then as you walk round, you have these sort of smaller bits in the front of the border. And really I only have the forget-me-nots because they flower so well when nothing else is flowering, but they could look a bit scruffy now, to be honest. This border, obviously, I still need to do a lot of work on. It's got lots of things growing in there that haven't come to maturation yet. And, you know, it's sort of a bit short on flowers because it's between stages at the moment. But we've got the scabiosa and the achilles at the front. The alliums, I think it's about the right height here. The alliums, I don't really want anything smaller than that really. I've got some monarda and then some Shasta daisies, and I'm going to have some more. I've got the sweet peas there again at the back. I've got some eating peas at the back. And then behind all that, I've got two types of buddleia. I've got a purple buddleia and one that I think it's called Moonlight buddleia. So that gives, again, the impression that everything is full of flowers in layers. Hopefully these cosmos will grow up taller as well. They're kind of a bit lost down there. They should be taller. So, you know, they've only just been planted out. So I did pinch them out, which I regret now. I do regret pinching out. Some plants just are better not pinched out, and I think cosmos is one of them. This is the Verbena bonacariensis. So this will come up and fill this gap here and be really tall. So you have to think about them when they're mature as well, because obviously when they're growing, they don't fit that kind of, they don't necessarily fit the strategy. So you've got like plants at the back that seem really small right now, like my Ami, but that will grow up and fill these spaces. So you have to be kind of patient. You have to be juggling lots of different things and ideas and plants, and even the habit of the plant. So I've got a hedge that causes a couple of hours shade in the middle of the day on some of these plants. And so you have to work that out, because that makes them sort of grow taller because they're trying to reach up out the shade. And, you know, so they grow taller in my garden than, say, somebody else's garden where it's in full sun all day. Yeah, so as you can see, it comes forward here. And then the tallest of all of the plants are the shrubs at the back, which are the buddleias. And I've got my climbing roses and things over the fire pit. So you can see all that from the back of, right back from the back door of the house. So all the way along the garden, which is quite a long garden, you can see all these taller plants, you know, right from back there, which is really nice, which is why the layers are important. So then the other way you can layer is by growing plants. So this is the third way. So you've got your vista looking, as you look down the garden, you want your tallest flowering plants right at the back of the garden where you're looking. Then you've got your borders. You've got to think about, obviously, border heights so that you can see the flowers that are flowering in order. And then you can add more flowers by layering flowers through other flowers. So in this case, I've got this sweet pea growing up through this peony, because obviously this peony isn't going to flower forever. And then, you know, at least we'll have the nice foliage of the peony, but also some sweet peas as well. So it's a nice little arrangement, because we have the columbine here, the peony in the pot. We've got the rose above, climbing rose, and the sweet peas growing through the peony. So again, more layering. So this is the third way of layering, is by having things growing through. Of course, clematis, honeysuckle, sweet peas are all really good for growing through. So this one, I have a honeysuckle and a clematis here growing through the rose hedge. And hopefully eventually this clematis will flower. Everything's a little bit behind what it was last year. Here's another clematis growing through my grapevine on my wall. So, you know, I didn't really have any flowers here. I've always just had this grapevine, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to plant a clematis here, and it's actually done really well. It's only the second year I've had it, so it's maturing nicely. And last year I think I got one flower off it, and this year I've got a number of different flowers and buds. And this is another clematis I have that isn't actually in flower yet, but you can look how magnificent this is. So this kind of creates a flower border in the hedge and trees on the shady side of my garden, which means, you know, as I say, I've every spare inch of the garden eventually is covered in flowers. As you can see, this is over the other side of my garden, which I don't like to show you very often because it's a bit messy. But look at this. It's absolute beauty, isn't it? So there we are, layering. 3 ways to layer your flowers. That's from looking right out across your garden from front to back. So you can have the various layers. You have your you know, your shorter plants at the front. Then I have like my rose hedge, and then behind that I have honeysuckle growing through things. I have roses, climbing roses, I have buddleias, etc. right at the back against the border of my garden, you know, the back border of the fence. Another way then obviously of layering is through your actual borders. So you're thinking about the border on its own merits. So you've got your you know, you're going to have your shortest plants at the front. I mean, it's not rocket science, of course, but it's quite difficult to get right, you know, because plants do grow sometimes not according to plan. So you have to learn from your own mistakes and your own microclimate and your own conditions in your own garden. And then if you do have a border, like I have that circular border, you're going to have to think about that. You don't really want anything in that border that's going to block the flowers in the border behind. So that's why the circular border, I kind of have everything just kind of rose height, about waist height, so that I can still see the sweet peas and the poppies and everything in the border behind that border. And then, of course, you've got your layering. So your third way is your layering is through your pots and growing things through your plants. So you've got perfect for layering that way is the sweet peas, as I said, the clematis, honeysuckle. They're three classics, and you can just grow them amongst all your other plants, and they will just flower in addition to everything else you have flowering. Anyhow, I mean, if you didn't know that already, I hope it helps when you're thinking about your cottage garden and you're thinking about, you know, the different aspects and how it looks when you're looking out across your garden. You know, you sort of need to think of it in from different angles. You know, look around your garden, look at it at little local areas. I like looking at little local clusters of flowers around pots and things, but I also like looking in the whole view, taking in the whole view. I like to move my coffee table around a bit to see the garden from different angles, to see what's working, what I've neglected, and so on and so forth. And, you know, eventually, you know, I mean, I can see already improvements on my garden from last year. So, you know, it's only going to get better from here on in. So hopefully my sort of mistakes and learning curve, if I share that with you, will help you avoid the same mistakes, and you can sort of hit the ground running when you're planning your own garden. Don't forget to subscribe, because I'm going to be doing an update on this flower here and how I grew it and why it was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, and I wish I had more. So I'm definitely going to prepare for that, so I have more of them for next year, and I'll share what I've learned with you. And also, I did an experiment a while back on my bells of Ireland, and I want to bring you the results of that experiment, and also I want to show you how differently my bells of Ireland have performed this year compared to last year, and we're going to go through some of the reasons why that might be the case. All right, hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you again soon. Bye.